Hi, welcome to The Pursuit of Truth. Another quick one. Two things that I heard on Sky News that interest me. I hope they interest you, whoever's listening. The first one, obviously the continuing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. I thought it was 4 months, but I heard someone say it's 6 months now. Is it really 6 months? The figure, over 30,000 people been killed. We don't know how many of them are civilians. But it's a huge majority when you look at the Ukraine war, and only 20,000 Ukrainian soldiers. I'm sure it's more than that. But when you look at these figures, and that's 2 years, it's just, so this is telling now about, and I'm sure this has already happened, but just the media haven't really reported on it, or these stories aren't getting out, because how would you know? But they're saying now that in the only child hospital in Gaza that's left, now children are dying of starvation. They're not dying of the diseases or the conditions that they may find themselves in the hospital. They're dying because they don't have food to eat. They don't have food to eat in the 21st century. On a planet that we were all freely given, that has enough food for all of us. There's 7 billion of us. The estimates, I believe, when I've seen before, and I don't know how they work these out, but the actual place, the planet, let's call it that term, that's been given, or Earth, can give, 70 billion people's worth of food and water. So, there isn't a shortage of food or water for any person living or lived or going to live. We are so lucky that we found ourselves on this place that gives us free sustenance, even though we now have to pay for that free sustenance that we were all freely given, whether you believe in God or not. I mean, how stupid that for us to build a system where, out of the earth comes trees, it comes all the minerals, all the things that make all the technology. I know there's a process to combine some of these things to manufacture things and make the products. But what I mean is the actual substance for everything that we eat, everything that, we sit on, our televisions, our phones, every single bit has come freely from this planet, from Mother Earth, from God, or, whatever you want to say. And we found a way to, a selfish, greedy way of having to buy all this to live. And so now in Gaza, people, children, babies are dying because they don't have food. And I'm sure they're not the first, because we talked about this when they were talking about the casualty figures of I thought that this would be the big scandal that would stop the war in Gaza. That when people, because the Israelis, they turned off the water and electricity and things like that at the very beginning. I don't know if it's still off or on, or what it is, or what state of it is, but that was the problem. That set a cataclysm effect that would only lead to people starving. And while you could say that innocent people, that may get caught up as, the Americans like to call collateral damage, is a necessary evil, as it were, of war, it has to be proportionate, isn't it? But there's no proportionate reason. There's no reason for innocent casualties of people to starve because of a war in the planet that has enough food for everyone. It's just, anyway, this is the story. Just hear it. It's just, I don't know.
Doctors at the last functioning hospital, children's hospital in Gaza, have told Sky News that their babies in their care are dying from malnutrition. Our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle is joining us now from Jerusalem. Alistair, I wonder what you made of what the Israeli government representative had to say about that today.
Well, Israel says that it is doing everything it can do to get as much aid into Gaza as possible, and more aid could go in if it was donated by Western or Arab countries. However, there is clear disagreement. The United States and the United Kingdom in the last few days have both said Israel must do more. There is a humanitarian crisis already, and it is getting worse very rapidly and unfolding in front of our eyes. And my report, I should warn you, starts with images of babies who have died because of a direct result of the lack of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. They lost 13 babies in this hospital in a single day last week. All of them died from malnutrition in a place where they should have been safe. Another baby died from lack of oxygen because the hospital's solar panels have stopped working. The medical staff have to use the torch of a mobile phone for light. This is how it is now at the only paediatric hospital still functioning in northern Gaza.
The mothers cannot breastfeed and boost their baby's immune system due to them suffering from malnutrition themselves. So how can they breastfeed their babies? Nothing can substitute breastfeeding for babies under 1 year. This is the most difficult thing we encounter with the children.
Hundreds of thousands of people remain in northern Gaza. This is the daily scramble for the little aid that is getting there. There is no sign of authority or order. It's chaos. The US has said that Israel must do more to get aid into Gaza. And the UK has told Israel it is their responsibility under international law as the occupying power.
Exactly.
But Israel insists it is doing all it can to get more aid into Gaza and blames aid organisations for not distributing it more effectively. But the Israeli department in charge of overseeing Gaza has told Sky News that more border crossings could be opened for aid if the Israeli government gave the order.
If they were to make such a decision, then we would find a way to facilitate their decision. But at the moment...
So you could do it? If you were given the orders or the instructions to do so, that could happen?
If the directive came from the government, then COGAT would find a way to fulfill that mission.
There have been more aid drops into Gaza, underlining how difficult it is to get aid distributed by road. There is a growing disagreement between Israel and its closest allies. Stuck in the middle of that are millions of Gazans growing more desperate by the day. That statement by COGAT, which is the body that controls the crossings between Israel and Gaza, is quite an admission, because the United States have called for more border crossings to be opened to get aid into Gaza. And that is a body in the Israeli administration saying that that could be possible if only they were given the order to do so. And it effectively says that Israel therefore could be doing more to get aid into Gaza. And so I expect that more pressure will come on the Israelis to do so. And if they were able to open more land crossings further north, it means the aid doesn't get channeled entirely through the south and then have to make these very dangerous, perilous journeys into the north of Gaza, but it could go directly there. We are clearly seeing a difference of opinion between Israel and its closest allies, and the pressure is now heaping on Israel to do more as this humanitarian crisis gets worse.
Okay, for now, thank you.
Next one is about assisted dying. I'll reply afterwards.
Hello again, everybody. Recently, MPs calling for a renewed debate on assisted dying. Thrilled to say that Zoe Wanamaker, actress and patron of Dignity in Dying, is with us. Hi.
Hello.
Good to see you.
You too.
Tell me more.
Well, it's something that's been going on for a long time, or needs to have happened a long time ago. This has been a struggle. I don't personally understand it, because it's nobody's business but one's own, how one wants to live or die, and I think it's about time we recognise this as something of choice, freedom of choice.
Why is it important to you?
Because it's a no-brainer, really. But having witnessed somebody wanting to die, not being allowed to die, and begging to die, was not allowed to. And this doesn't seem to be, and has to, I mean, people have gone through a lot of pain knowing that this is the end of their life and not being able to choose when and how they die. And it's undignified. That's why dignity in dying is called what it is.
Are you talking about your father?
Yes, I was talking about my father, who had secondary prostate cancer and lived with us for 3 years, and
after 20 years of struggling against, he looked on
had enough. It had enough pain, and knew it was terminal anyway, so what's the point? And he had to suffer this, and it was just not right. It wasn't right.
We remember your father, of course, very well, actor, director, and responsible for the Globe, just
Absolutely.
across the river there.
Yes.
Just tell us a little bit about him.
Well, it took 27 years of his life.
I know.
And we would have dinners with plans coming out on the table, and nothing would happen. Nobody wanted to know about it, so he had to go to... I mean, in the last years of his life, got a plane to Japan, got a plane asking for money, for donations. And now, of course, it was a struggle, and not to see it completed was a great sadness to him. But he did say, he was very practical. He said, because the lottery was just about to come in, and he said, I think the Globe will get the lottery vote out of sympathy for me. So that's what happened. But yeah, he was an extraordinary human being, and to have him suffer like that for so long, in such pain, and it was just ridiculous. It was just insane. It's stupid. It's stupid. He's not a stupid person. And I don't think it's just him. I think I know of various other people who have wished to have the end of their life, and they have to pay a lot of money to go to Switzerland. And that's a struggle. It shouldn't be that way. It's undignified.
It's 30-odd years now, 30 years ago since your father died, and we're still in the same position.
Yes. Which I think the majority of people would agree. I mean, I don't understand why it's so resisted.
I've spoken to many MPs who would vote no against any attempt. They feel that for all sorts of reasons, not least potentially people being pressured into assisted dying.
Then what do you do about AI?
What do you mean?
Well, it's so easy to replicate somebody's wishes. Easy. But if you have a directive that you yourself and your family understand, then it's simple. There, of course, it's always, but then that's everything. It's like this budget. It's the thing.
You said you didn't want to get political.
I don't.
Okay.
But everything is political in the end, I'm afraid.
That's true.
And it's you cut something despite something else, at the repercussions of something else going on down the line. So it's the same with our lives. And whose God is your God or my God? If that's what you don't want, then you don't want it. Or it's against your religion or your principles. But I think most people don't want to suffer for a long time to cause arguments, fights, for nothing, for something that was inevitable anyway. And why we should be stopped from having our own way of dying it's a non sequitur to me. I don't understand it.
Would you have considered Dignitas if it had been an option when your father was suffering?
I don't think he would have got that far. I think it's not easy to do it, to get there. And then it's putting pressure on other people. This is the whole thing. The repercussions of that, for him he was too well known for a start, and I don't think he ever thought of that. He asked me if I would find him a book which would tell you how to die, but he was too ill to read the second page. So it was so stupid, I'm afraid, and I think the three of us, my two other sisters, were hoping that he would just pass away, but he didn't. He fought. The body fights, but not the brain. The brain knows what's going on.
Brave to Esther Ranson and her family.
Well, exactly. And then there's a wonderful writer who has had motor neurons disease, who's written 2 books, and I can't remember her name, who had to eventually starve herself to death.
So what's your plea to the Prime Minister this morning?
My plea is that they pass this bill at last, and I don't think there'll be a rush for children or anybody else to kill their parents or whatever. I don't think so. But I don't think there'll be a rush of people. I just think it should be something you shouldn't be penalised for. The end of your life is something that you choose.
And a fabulous legacy on the other side of the river, the Sam Wanamaker Playhouse as well, named after him.
Yes, he would have hated that, but he's dead. But at least he's not in the ether.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. We really
a pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was about assisted dying. It's an interesting one from a religious perspective. I know that, I don't know how that would become under suicide, and that would be a problem. Maybe why a lot of countries who are religious based don't want to do it. But I suppose the thing is, and I know like they always bring up the worry, and this sort of goes against some truthers who, probably when they hear this, they're going to say, oh, this is the government wanting to kill people, when the government have resisted this for years. If they wanted to kill people, this would have been an easy way to do it legitimately. So, and I know there will be people sort of trying to get that aspect of this thing, and you do hear truthers talk about this where governments, want to, and I'm sure there may be instances where I don't think governments want to kill, their majority of people to the governments and world leaders, if there are such things as this world order. We're probably insignificant to them. It doesn't really matter. What they really want is us just to continue, which majority of us do, continue to give them license to carry on. Well, we all do it. We all want to keep the system going. Most of us don't question the system, don't question money, don't question how everything works and how life was before, thousands of years ago. How, most people don't think that, well, everything was all of ours equally originally, and we're all one species living on this place together till we dispersed, and then we decided to cut it up and possess it as if we could possess it. Well, no one can possess it because we all die. But yeah, it's interesting if you're suffering. But it brings me sort of back to the Gaza thing and back to things that I talk about in Pursuit of Truth, about suffering, human suffering. I talk about a lot on the Pursuit of Truth. And, to think that whole nations could want to take assisted dying rather than suffer. Why are we suffering? Why are we allowing human beings to suffer? In daily life, people are suffering all the time. And yet they want to worry about the suffering people who probably got medical doctors already said they're going to die. I suspect that would be the legitimate way of doing this. If you want to do assisted dying, that you have to get a doctor who works for the NHS, not just any doctor, not a GP, but an actual doctor, a care doctor, who would be telling you, the same doctor that tells you, yes, you need to prepare for the end now. There's nothing we can do. There's no treatment. Unless there's some miracle treatment coming, which usually there isn't. So if you got that, then they would be able to just get them to sign off. Yes, of course there will be the cases where, people will, like the what was his name, the GP that was killing old ladies and writing in their wills. You will get that kind of thing, but you get that anyway at the NHS. You get that at care homes. You get all sorts of indiscrepancies and things. That doesn't mean you don't care for people. That doesn't mean you allow suffering just because you know that there will be some bad eggs that won't follow, what is right. The Hippocratic Oath that they all sign, if they still do that. So yeah, I don't see a reason why it shouldn't be. I know there will be some. The problem will be the criteria. I guess it'll have to be what the problem is end of life is easy. If you've got, say, cancer or something like that, and you're definitely going to die, there's no treatment, you've tried everything, and therefore, you know, that there's nothing that can do, it's untreatable, stage 5 or 4 or whatever it is, then yeah. The problem is the grey areas where it's, you know, motor neurone or disabled diseases where they're degenerative. What stage do you put when that person can then consider themselves end of life, as it were? Because they can last for years, but their life degenerates to a place where they wouldn't like to. That's on the Coronation Street story at the moment. So that's probably where the grey area is. That's where they'll have to work that out. But I suppose at the end of the day, we all have to sign for ourselves. We're all free individuals. We all have to take the responsibilities ourselves. And if you take the responsibility, I suppose the problem is, as long as you're a free mind and you're not being coerced, that would be something they have to check. But legal departments check that all the time and things. When you have an operation, you sign your consent. No one checks whether you're of legal sound mind when you're doing that. So I guess it should be in that same way, but it may have to be more stringent. Because at the end of the day, who wants suffering? But then I suppose the thing is, from a religious aspect, that gets grey if you're religious and the Bible or the Quran tells you that taking your own life, well, I suppose you're not taking your own life per se. I don't know. But then if you believe in a merciful God, why would he want you to suffer if there's nothing that can be done because man hasn't found a cure for these things? He's wasting his time competing against each other. That's what they should be looking at. Because then you'd probably have less assisted dying because we would have sorted these things out. We would have found cures for things. We were too worried about making money and, you know, keeping one side up, one side down. Anyway, take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.